Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here as always with my good friend, colleague, and co-host Jim Gurley. And in the pregame, we had a couple different thoughts jumping around, but to stick to the framework that we have, the flywheel of life, the five areas, which Jim you can dig into. We're gonna go with the topic of self-belief today, and in the context of the neuroscience of our limiting beliefs, our self-beliefs, because some of our beliefs are not limiting and some of them are. And then we have five kind of principles that we're going to wrap around. So Jim, how do you want to go? You want to start going through these one through five and then talk about each one as we go, or do you have a story to tell, or what? Mike's on
Oh, you
you.
know me. I always have a story to tell. I don't know if it's a very good one, but of course I got a story to tell. Yeah, no, again, Mark, just going back to our Imperfect Men's Club framework. Our tagline: "The imperfection is the perfection." But for those of you that have not are not familiar with our framework, Mark and I, it's been a few years now. We got together and created this framework of these five areas of our life in no particular order. As a man, our profession is comes first. That's just part of our self-worth is based on our profession and many different subcategories: entrepreneur, corporate America, and so on. The other one is our relationship with others. That's men, women, very different dynamics. Our mother, our wives, girlfriends, whatever it is, daughters. The next one is our relationship with our health. That's our mental health and physical health. So you could say today is a little bit about our mental health, right? We'll tie it into
Sure.
that, and then the next category is our relationship with the world, and that's our worldview. So, of course, a belief system comes a lot from your worldview, and we break that into a couple different subcategories. One being our childhood and the relationships, or the experiences we had during that time and place. In your case, it's Boston and the 60s, 70s. In my case, it's the San Francisco Bay Area in that time period. So, and then the what's one did I miss? Where that's
Money.
money. Oh shit. Yeah, and that's the one that people don't realize. But yes, we have a relationship with money, and typically that's two categories or subcategories. It's abundance or scarcity, and that has a lot to do with the belief system. So
Yeah.
today's topic was inspired by a talk I heard from a neuroscientist, and I've listened to a few of them. I'm interested in hearing some of your references as far as neuroscientists is, and this is something just because I like to understand how the human brain functions, the mechanics of it, and then as you know, I'm looking into my goals and my objectives for 2026 and a little self-reflection in terms of what I accomplished in 25. It was a good year, but I think 26 is going to be even better because I have some high expectations and ambitions, but I do believe if I don't deal with some of my limiting self beliefs, then that's going to be something that will uh, prevent me from accomplishing those goals. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm happy that I didn't start the podcast with how wonderful the pregame was, so I can do it now. Um, no,
yeah.
it's an interesting topic, and it's really got my mind racing. I had an epiphany that I shared with you that I can share again just today about one of my limiting beliefs. We can hold on to that until it fits into the flow of the
Mhm.
podcast. But the first kind of part of this, you've broken this into five different sentences, five different points to be made from this neuroscientist that you listen to. The first one is limiting beliefs are defined as thoughts or statements accepted as truth that often keep individuals from moving forward and living their fullest potential. And I think I think we've heard about these most of my our lives, maybe most of our adult lives, but I don't know. It seems for some reason, which might be an interesting part of this conversation, that we're spending a lot more time concentrating on them, thinking about them, trying to fix them, looking into what they are and where they come from. And I suppose it's a stage of life thing, Jim. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think when
Yeah.
you're younger and you're just running and you're raising kids and you're working your ass off, you don't have time to think about this shit, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you've heard me mention this before. I think we live life in increments of 10 in 5 year increments, but our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it's a different place. You don't have time to think about it. You're just doing. You're also typically not in a place of leadership where you can um, really understand things. You're asked to follow the instructions at that in the earlier stages of your life. So
Mhm.
yeah, but let's just start off with, like you say, going number one is our educational system, our the environment we grew up in. Even our uncles or our grandparents. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong, but just because they said it doesn't mean it was true. And
Yeah.
as you get older, you start to maybe self-reflect on, hey, is that really true? So it's not a criticism of that, but I do think that addresses number one. But
You,
go
you
ahead
know,
and move to number two because this I
Well,
think this
let
is where it
me
gets
let,
interesting.
let
Yeah,
me let me say something before I go to number
yeah,
two, because we were talking about Dr. Andrew Huberman before the
yep,
show, and for people that don't know, he's a pretty well-known neuroscientist, and Jordan Peterson's a psychologist as well. So
mm,
fascinating. Those two guys, if you don't know them, you should definitely look into them. They're
no question.
fascinating. But
Yep.
it's the Huberman would say about what you just said. One of the exercises he recommends is when a limiting thought or negative thought enters your consciousness, immediately say to yourself, that's not a fact. That's just a thought.
Hmm.
And as simple as that is, think about how powerful that would be if you were able to get your brain to actually believe that, because it's true. It's not a fact. It's
Hmm.
just a thought, right?
Yeah,
So we'll get
yeah.
back to him. But number two, these belief systems are typically, to your point, established during childhood when children accept what they hear directly into their subconscious mind, lacking the judgment necessary to question the information. Yeah, I,
Yeah,
uh,
lot,
I,
lot there.
yeah,
You go first.
it makes me think about I told you this story before. When I was like 16 or 17, I asked my dad, I said, I don't understand. This God thing doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I thought he was going to be upset with me. And what happened was he was encouraging me to question everything. He said, that's how your faith will get stronger, right? And that's, I think, one of the things that's missing today is we've lost the ability to disagree in a civil manner, So I think that I've got a couple of childhood memories that would probably qualify as happened, but I think what I brought up in the pregame was what happened to me in my marriage and the massive and complete and total negative rejection. I think it's still kind of stuck to me a little bit, and that's not a childhood memory, that's an adult memory. So interesting though.
Yeah, and this goes back to our framework just for a second. In the center of all that is ourself, and self-awareness is number one. So that's really our main goal in our weekly episodes is to improve self-awareness. And then, like you said, if there's events that happen in your life, then to go back and at least understand those to make sure they're not driving your life in a negative way. But I am going to go back to the childhood part because it turns out that trauma is part of a human being. We all have trauma. And
Mhm.
it does, I want to reframe it not necessarily in a negative way, like you're not functional, but it's just what human, they can go back and say generational trauma means our grandparents, our great grandparents, our great great grandparents their trauma is still part of in our mind. That's part of
Mhm.
our DNA. So I thought that was fascinating when I understood that, some of these experiences that my ancestors had still play out in my brain. That's just the
Mhm.
the way that they know that to be a fact. The part about the childhood is what your belief system, and in my case, again, this is what we're talking about. Like, this is high performance, next level. To go to next level, you have to deal with some of these things in order to overcome those impediments, those blocks. And I've shared this with publicly other times. When I was 10 years old, I was asked to read in front of the classroom, and I remember, like I said, I remember it like it was yesterday, but it was a very traumatic experience because when my time came to read a sentence, I couldn't read and didn't at that time know it was dyslexia, but the words were jumping around. That was such a horrible experience.
I bet, man. I bet.
But that, and I don't think I've ever really dealt with that. But I think so. It's not bad. A lot of good things have come from that. It turns out that the way my brain functions isn't very good in the classroom, but it works in other areas. But the point is, it happened, and it happened a couple other times. So that's always with you. That's your
Hmm.
subconscious mind. So it's
Hmm.
just being self-aware of it. But yeah, childhood is a big one. So
Well,
it's
it's interesting, and I just thought about it. My best friend growing up was a guy named Ned, and he was my next door
mhm,
neighbor, and he was dyslexic, and
yeah.
nobody knew what was wrong with him.
Well,
They just
we didn't even know what it was back
I
then.
know, I
It was
know. And
yeah.
the other thing that strikes me as interesting is, what else he did that you did?
Yeah.
He fought a lot because
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
he was
yeah.
fucking angry, you
Oh,
know?
you're really angry. It's again, it's a 10-minute story, but that I'll do the very 10-second version of it. It was so devastating at that time. I remember it was California, hot summer. The it's I can't sweat because I'm not even through puberty yet, right? But I remember my being really, really warm, and then kind of like out of nowhere, the bell rings and it stops. So I was in this. She was yelling at me to read, and I didn't know what to do because the words are jumping around. I'm trying to read. I was so uncomfortable. Like, it hurts. I can get emotional talking about it. The bell rings for recess, which I was like, wow. And it stopped.
Mm.
At that very moment, it stopped.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then everybody ran out, did recess because it was recess time. And back then we used to play Smear the Queer. You can't say that anymore, but I don't know if you know what
yeah,
Smear the Queer is, but
yeah, yeah,
oh, I mean, it was the best game. It was the funnest. So yeah, Smear the Queer is you just tackle the guy with the ball, right?
yeah.
It had nothing to do with gay guys, nothing at all.
No, I know. Well, a lot of the stuff they blame us for saying now doesn't have
Yeah.
anything to do with what they think
So
it
yeah.
says.
So hopefully we're not going to get taken off Apple
No, I
for
think we're
this.
back to some semblance of
Yeah.
normalcy now in this
Yeah.
country, but
But
we got a
the
ways to
point is
go.
my anger. I remember the faces of each one of those kids laughing,
Yeah,
especially the boys because the girls weren't playing. And boy, I ripped their heads off. I mean, I
yeah.
just physically and then yeah, you become very very aggressive because there's a lot of there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of anger and frustration, but you don't know that, so you take that out physically
Yeah,
and
and we've evolved, you and me, on this podcast into this idea that, when someone takes anger out on you in whatever form, physical, emotional, words, whatever,
yeah,
it's usually them projecting
yeah,
on you. It's not You've not done anything to deserve that, and I think it's healthy to be conscious of some of these things because what I was telling you earlier, my reaction to a really minor rejection online and the manifestation of it
yeah.
in my body was overwhelming, and it really
Hmm.
drew out this idea that maybe
Hmm.
I'm not completely over the trauma of the complete and exhausting and
Hmm.
devastating rejection that was my contentious divorce.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm gonna think about that and look into that after we're done here. But
Yeah,
here's
that's
here
self-awareness and self-reflection. It's a good thing,
yeah,
right?
it's a good thing, but I think it's a good thing to a point because if you
Yeah,
stay in it,
that's
then you'll
right.
never accomplish anything. You'll never take care of, you'll never fix anything. You gotta,
Yeah,
it has to be like everything, Jim, in life, right? Everything has to be, after the thought is done, it needs to be acted upon or executed upon or implemented, whatever the case
yeah,
might be, project or conversation, whatever.
yeah,
Um, Number three, from a neuroscience perspective, overcoming limiting beliefs requires changing the established deep grooves or highways in the brain by consistently repeating new, more powerful patterns. And I think
yeah.
this is something this we can bring Dr. Huberman back into the conversation here, and unless you've got something else you want to get in there beforehand.
Yeah, just this is something I did a real deep dive in a few years ago, actually, when you and I met about the human brain and the neural pathway. So it turns out the neuroplasticity of the human brain, it's a machine that can, it's like any other organ. It can get blocked. There's blood that runs through these different parts of our brain. That what's so amazing, we don't know much about the human brain, but what we do know is these pathways, and they can be reprogrammed, unlike other muscles. So it's again, I want to get too much into the mechanics of it, but it turned out when when we met, remember I was dealing with some concussion protocol things that they think was related to, of course, fights, car accidents, and like 30 years of football and rugby at even at the highest level. So,
Hmm. Oh, that makes
yeah,
perfect sense to me. Yeah.
yeah. Well, so it turns out the brain gets, when it gets banged around like that, it affects the neural pathways.
Yeah.
I'm saying this in a funny way. It wasn't very funny at the time. I ended up doing 50 hyperbaric treatments to deal with
Hey,
that. But the point is, I made a decision that I wasn't going to let this prevent me from accomplishing the goals or what I wanted to do. But it was clearly something I had to deal with, and then it was a matter of changing the environment, changing a lot of you had to change things in order to reprogram your brain to think
hmm.
differently in a different
Yeah.
way. So it's
And the interesting thing that Huberman was saying, and I just saw this the other day. It's on YouTube. It's a 26-minute audio. It's not a video, but he talks about this exact thing. And I
mhm,
think that what I said to you earlier in the pregame was neuroscience just is so complex. It's so
mhm,
deep and broad that I think that at least I experience, well, the solution must be very complex too. And it appears that it's
mhm,
not. The solution appears to be consistent, repetitive, saying something in three or four
mhm,
different ways. One would be thinking the thought, two would be writing it down, and three would be saying it out loud. And I
mhm,
would imagine that listening to someone else say it would be helpful, well, like in a
mhm.
meditative way.
Yeah.
But and doing that very like five or six, seven, eight, nine, 10 times in a row, first thing in the morning, and then right before you go to bed, which apparently embeds those thoughts in your subconscious while you sleep. And
Interesting.
much like going to the gym and lifting weights, if you do those repetitions 5, 6, 7 days a week, by the time you get to a couple of months, now this process of changing these established deep grooves or highways, this starts to become embedded. Like you literally picture a train track getting switched from going that way to going this way. So
Yeah.
I think that what I just said makes the solution to this limiting belief thing much more accessible because it's not as complex as the science that defines it. It's not even
Mhm.
close.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's neural pathways. They're neurons, right? It's like a computer. You're
Yep.
reprogramming your neurons to react differently. But something you said that I think is important is it's also disrupting the existing thought.
Yes.
To in order to reprogram new thoughts, you have to first stop you have to change the can channel. I use the radio. Change the channel
Hmm.
because this is the self-talk. This is this repetitive and then mantras, like you said, simple things to repeat it. So yeah, fascinating stuff. So
Well, the other, and just to conclude that Huberman's solution piece, because again, it's a 26-minute audio, and I think it was fabulous. He also says when a negative thought, aka a limiting belief, enters your consciousness, immediately and do this, start make it a habit. That's not a fact. That's just a thought,
hmm,
right? And those two little things, there was a third one, and I can't remember what it was, but go listen to the audio, anybody
yeah,
who's listening. And yeah, the solution to this is not complex. Don't be intimidated by it.
yeah,
I probably
yeah.
have been for a long time.
Yeah, but the human body doesn't know the difference between that. So, like your body, they talk about dreams. You're experiencing it as it happened. The
Hmm.
fact that it didn't happen, the human body doesn't really know the difference. And
No.
so it's your emotions and that is the same. So it's again, it's not what happened. It's how you experience what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Number four is it looks a little bit redundant, but we'll go with it anyway. It's the process of breaking a limiting belief fundamentally involves identifying the specific belief, consciously replacing it with a helpful, empowering alternative, and then taking actions that reflect the new belief. That last part, taking the actions that reflect that new belief, is interesting because there's a school of thought that's quite popular that, you are what you believe you are, and you are what you tell yourself that you are. And in my experience, Jim, when I was in my 20s, I probably would have said, yeah, those people are nuts. They're the ones wearing Birkenstocks and smoking weed, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And now
Mhm.
they've got instruments and computers where you can slap a helmet on somebody's head and you can see what's going on. It's different colors, it's different levels of brightness, different levels of different areas of the brain that are responsible for different functions. There's nothing woo woo about this. This is all
Mhm.
science.
Yeah, this is. super important in terms of, in fact, a little off topic, but as you know, I'm pretty involved with my high school football team, and um, this group of coaches now. When I started this 18 years ago, are the head coach, the athletic director. So it's really cool. There's about five coaches that have come back now, and now we're in the playoffs. So we just won the first playoff game. So I'm going to do a talk tomorrow, but before or on Friday before the game, and it talks about this. The message is typically about winning a championship because winning a championship is not just about the physical part, right? It's the mental part. So I break it into this framework. We talked about it once in the podcast, but it's the five. I call it the M5 framework.
Hmm.
It's the manifesto, the methodology, the mentality, the machine, and the mindset. And in very high level, the manifesto is the big vision. And as they say, a captain. I remember when we were on our first national championship. We won two national championships when I was playing rugby, but one on the field as the captain. And so that's your job as the captain to have this manifesto of how um, to get everybody to buy into, right? This is really your belief system
Hmm.
and how you're going to win the championship, especially the big game. And then the second one is the methodology, like, what is the method? Why are we different? Why is this team or this group unique in order to accomplish this? And then it's the mentality. That's You have to have a certain mentality to execute that's and not everybody. It's not always the best player. It's just the right mentality. Some of that could be learned. Some of that is just by nature. But the machine is the is that's what reproduces the results over and over and over again. That's the blocking, the tackling. That's what makes you special or the team special. And then it's the mindset, right? That we're going to win no matter what. And that's a special group. That's the difference between winning a championship and um, um, or say a league championship versus a national championship. And then
Hmm.
the other one is just the mind can the body can only do so much, but the brain that's unlimited as far as the next level, right? Most
Hmm.
people's bodies will break down and when things get really hard. The mind takes over, but to win a championship, it's with your heart, and
Hmm.
that's the difference between winning the big one versus not. So it is relevant.
Yeah, that sounds like it'll be fun. I wish I were able to be in the locker room listening
Well, again, one thing about high school is it will define this. Talk about yeah, this is ideal for a belief system. But if you can learn early on in your life, we talked about this before. I was fortunate to live, in a place in an area where winning championships was just part of what you did. It was expected. That's a mentality, and if you have a mindset or you have a self belief system because you're exposed to that early on in your high school career, it applies to everything you do in life, right? It's the
it does. I
best
mean, it's just
mentoring.
as you're talking, I can see the application in a business culture. You know, the
Yeah,
culture and the mission and vision of of a company. And in my experience, and this is probably why there are far fewer championship teams than there are teams, right? Far fewer. Like the championship teams in the realm of all teams is probably like less than 1%. You
yeah.
know, and that's
But you
true
see
in
it all the
business.
time. There's a guy. Look at Tom Brady, for example.
Yeah.
That guy goes and wins all those Super Bowls, and then he goes and wins. Didn't he go on and play for
Yeah,
the?
Tampa Bay. He won one with Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
and
See, it's
and
not
his
just the physical part, and it's just remarkable that he can transfer that over. So it goes to show you that it is a mentality, it is a
it
mindset.
well, excellence is a mentality for sure. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. We just lost half our audience when you said Tom Brady.
We didn't lose you. I know that because you grew up in Boston. So.
Yeah, no, that was a special thing, and there was a lot of good Boston sports stories, but I
I
suppose
remember
that's
when I was
true.
growing up, it was the Oakland Raiders
Yep,
and the Oakland A's. So they won the championship. So the Oakland A's.
yep,
That's a mentality. That's a mindset that you
yeah,
just buy into that.
yeah. That's oh man, reminiscing, huh?
Yeah.
So number five is resistance and discomfort are normal during the change process because the brain prefers to remain in a safe, familiar state rather than adopting new habits or beliefs. You know, this is interesting, and I'll tell a quick story. It is about mentality, it is about mindset. But you remember I jumped into this keto lifestyle a while back, And I remember
Mhm.
it was because of a book. And what the book did, it was written by a doctor, a medical doctor, who was trying to cure her mother of cancer, trying to save her mother's life. And she didn't know anything about ketones, having gone through medical school and practiced medicine for 20 years.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one thing she did, Jim, and I think this is why most people can't sustain this, is she mapped out the first 30 days. This is what's going to happen. This is the resistance and discomfort that's going to take place in your physical body and your brain, because what you're doing to your body is saying, you know how we've lived for the last 50 years? We're changing all of that. So
Mhm.
all of these physical tracks, these physical highways, veins, arteries, nervous system, digestive system, it's the physical match to what we're talking about mentally. But the
Mhm.
discomfort piece is what shut most people down. That little habit I shared on number 3 from Andrew Huberman,
Mhm.
that doesn't work unless you sustain it over a long period of time. And you know
Mhm.
what? You know what's going to happen? You're not going to feel anything for a while, and you're going to go, "Fuck this! This doesn't work." And
Yeah.
I think we as humans do that with our minds and our bodies. That just struck me as an interesting analogy when I read the number 5.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to expand on something. Again, you don't have to give specifics in terms of this, but this is something that you really had a lot of insight and expertise with, right? Because you worked or with or you were part of a group. But if you could, just in summary, what was the technique, the method, the I don't know, the the program that's what how we met. But tell us a little bit about your understanding of that and how this related to a belief system. Because I went through the program, and as part of it is going back and trying to recognize patterns or events, and then resolving those in your mind. And he had some pretty good examples of getting people in the right place to high performance achievements. But yeah, give me your thoughts about some of these
Yeah, no,
methodologies.
it's kind of, honestly, Jim, it's been so many years. I don't remember it like I once did, but I know that it was a session is what it was called, and it
Yeah.
was ostensibly only something that needed to be done one time, and
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
was all kind of quiet, calm, subconscious work. But
Hmm.
it began with the premise that we all have trauma in there, and we the way trauma works is that when
Hmm.
it strikes, so to speak, we feel and think as
Hmm.
though it's happening right then and there, even though
Hmm.
it might have happened 30 years ago. And
Hmm.
so the session itself was kind of a psychological thing that I don't have
Yeah,
the
we'll call it a
chops to
hack,
explain.
right? But
Yeah.
it's a bit of to hack the human
Well,
brain. Yeah.
I saw some very interesting results, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it's going, but all of this work that we're talking about seems to me to be the same thing. You've got
Yes.
stuff going on in your subconscious from a
Hmm.
long time ago,
Yep.
and you can get it out of your way, right?
Yep.
With just some simple exercises, sessions,
Mhm.
whatever you want to call them. I'm
Yeah.
sure there are other ways to go about doing this, but I think the end result is the same. You're taking these highways that are established in your childhood or
Yeah.
perhaps later on in life, and you're saying that you're on the wrong road, right? You're on the wrong
Yeah.
road. Just go over here. If you start taking this road, things will ease. So,
Yeah, you're right. It's been a few years, but it's reminding me. But you're right. It is a form, almost like of hypnosis, uh, hybrid effect of hypnosis to go back in that time, and then giving yourself permission. It was also about words, trigger words, and then creating your new ones that
mm-hmm,
replace the old ones. But
mm-hmm,
understanding what happened in a way that when that does happen, you've it's about alignment is what it really was. It
mm-hmm.
was alignment and then the connectivity. So you really got clear on what that was in order to overcome those obstacles. It was again next level thing, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that, there's all kinds of ways. There's all kinds of techniques that like EFT
Yep.
or otherwise called tapping, I think. And
Yep.
my girlfriend and I do various Chinese medicine related things that involve the mind and the brain. We were looking into some Tai Chi the other day. I've never
Uh-huh.
done it. I've never done it before, but it's not just a physical movement. It's actually a very gradual physical movement, and it's a
Hmm.
mindset exercise while doing a physical movement.
Hmm.
I do. I mean, I think meditation is
Hmm.
very helpful, and I also think
Yep.
for me, Another form of meditation is prayer. I mean, in all
Yeah.
of these areas, you're shifting the way your mind works and
Hmm.
moving the negative stuff, either offloading it to someone else like God, right?
Hmm.
Get it calming your brain like meditation, so
Yep.
it can do that work on its own, or implanting messages into your brain right before you go to sleep, so then they play around in your subconscious, which I think is
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm going
Yes,
to try
Joe
to do some of that.
Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, that's his thing too. Again,
Yeah,
it's reprogramming. There's some really good stuff
yeah,
there.
yeah,
But yeah, like I said, the other one was just they're hacks. I mean, that's why I do I have a sauna, so I do the sauna. It's a hack of extreme temperatures, help your brain recalibrate. Same with cold plunges,
yeah.
exercise. Yeah, there's all kinds of hack your brain, but
Yeah.
it's to get it to
Well, I think
so
that maybe to wrap up, I like to bring my dad into these discussions. I think that the number one reason that he's still alive and flourishing at 97, driving his own car, going to church every day, doing his own grocery shopping, he's on no medications, has nothing to do with physiology. I think it's all the fact that he's lived most of his life in a state of peace of mind.
yeah.
And I think that's been accomplished. His hack has been his faith. And
Yeah.
it's astounding. I mean, I know he's my dad and I brag about him and stuff, but I've never met anyone else with that. And it really probably is one of the reasons I'm thinking about this stuff more, is because he's not going to be around for much longer, I don't think. And I say that with all peace of mind. He knows where he's going and I know where he's going
Mhm.
too. But I think that the calm mind, peace of mind, a lack of stress might
Mhm.
be the number one way to get better, and whatever that
Mhm.
means to you, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, Mark, good stuff. Until next week.
Sounds good, Jim. Thanks.